Hey, welcome back to Anything Relevant. We're going to be doing another video. We're going to be talking about this Ukraine-Russia situation. How we all know how complicated it is. We all know how wrong it is. We all know that the whole world's watching. And it is very complicated. You have World War II policies that are not being honored. You got 1990s policies not being honored on the Russian side. They're breaking their word from then. You got all sorts of things that are going on that make it very layered and not clear cut and not as tidy as we would like it to be. So you got the West. What are they doing? They've done everything they can economically, internationally, grounding planes, not receiving Russian flights from Russian airlines. They're seizing and freezing money all over the world that's tied to Russia. They're focusing on the top 10 oligarchs of Russia. They're doing everything they can to cripple and make it hurt for Russia. That all sounds like a good idea because we got to do something. But trade has been a primary catalyst that provokes escalation or war. If you go through history, why wars occur, the majority of the times gravitates towards trade and economy. So it's great that we're doing this to show that Russia should not be doing this. But what if these actions are the very actions that cause Putin to react uncharacteristically because of the pressure that we're putting on? Then what do we do? Just sit back and watch? Well, can't do that. Then if we fund them, then they're going to fight on their own turf, getting shelled by Russian shells until the country's flat. And hopefully that tanks the Russian economy and their military might. But that's a heavy cost. I don't think the Ukrainians want that. I don't think they want their country to be bombed back into the Stone Age. So then we fast track them into Europe. That escalates the conflict. Now it is war. Now it is World War III. Seemed like a good idea to escalate Ukraine into a European country, swear them into the UN. Can't be quickly done, but they're going as fast as they can. It's been majority rule a lot of the times with these preliminary assessments in the UN. Like I say, it's good intentions. But are we calculating the ramifications of the reactions of a bully? You can't let the bully be the aggressor and make all the rules and threaten everyone. But at the exact same time, you can't throw your weight around too much around that bully, because then they'll be like, oh, so it's only going to get worse unless I do something. So then they start doing something very uncharacteristic for their own survival. So if we make this life or death, well, they're going to choose their life, and they're going to choose us to die. So then what do? I think you bring in the Foreign Legion into Ukraine instead of making them fight on their own turf in their own cities. You flood as many people as you can into Ukraine with as much equipment as you can, when they come in. And what do? Constant pressure, pushing them out. What about neutralizing the airspace? I don't know about that. To me, that feels like escalation. If I can amp up the thing that won't cause as much escalation, maybe that might be the path. But what if? Well, the thing is, you gotta accept a bad case scenario with every decision you make. And there's varying degrees up until then. I just feel if you do anything big, this guy is 70 years old and the former KGB head director and the last serving one at that. So I don't think he's crazy and I don't think he's dumb. Is he heartless and ambitious and ruthless and have little regard for human life? Yeah. Is he glory seeking? Maybe. Is he like, here's another thing to consider. If you can try and get the people of Russia to take back their government, that's a long shot. And how would you even do it? Maybe that's what all these sanctions are intending to do. But the risk is escalation. So then I guess the best way to decide on what we do is, what worst case scenario would we rather deal with? And then find the solution or the decision that provokes that. Try and steer this. Many approaches to conflicts like this in the past have taken that type of measure. Accepting a type of worst case scenario that they can live with and pushing as hard as they can in that direction. Either you're going to get what you're looking for or you're going to lose. You always have that flip of the coin anyway. So why not put your efforts into something that you can accept? Versus, this is the best case scenario out of them all, so let's push hard for that. But what about the worst case scenario that is the flip side of that decision? This is the burden of command. It weighs heavy on the mind and the soul. Chess. Not every game ends with you having every single piece that you started with. Which means, can you choose when you lose your pieces? Or are you trying to get them and you lose pieces along the way? Some of the best chess masters, they know what they're going to lose. They're going to lose it on purpose. And you're going to take them thinking, look at me, sweeping the board. But he's opening you up. He's sacrificing a couple pawns, a knight, bishop. But now you're in checkmate. Well, let's look at that. 3 pawns, a bishop, and a rook, and a knight. What does that represent? It's pretty much half of what you have on the board. So if you're willing to lose that much to win, then what is the cost? What does it actually cost? And that's what we have to decide with Russia. What are we willing to lose in order to put this problem to bed? Because when you're dealing with conflict, let's look at Japan at the end of World War II. Some people say that Japan was on their knees. There wasn't much left. There's just hardliners that were not letting the emperor make any rash decisions and surrendering. And there's some other schools of thought that say that Japan was ready to rock and roll with 7.5 million people ready to fight to the end. But if we talk about that, we also have to talk about that the firebombing killed more than the two nukes by a margin, by a large margin. You see, they firebombed the islands with flammable explosives because the Japanese communities were built out of wood. So they would bomb in a grid-like pattern. And they corralled all these people to two communities. But the firebombing was so effective that it killed, during that time period, more than those two bombs combined. So if that's all true, that was the price for victory. All that. And that no more Americans were going to be lost in the process. Because the fear of what I was discussing with one school of thinking is that if they went into Japan, they'd have to go in with millions, that they couldn't send in 300,000-400,000. They'd have to go in with millions, and it could take years. Well, let's say they scraped up millions and they went in, but it was the other school of thought. They were on their knees. You see the difference? They couldn't figure out either way, so they bombed. Where if they scraped together that many people and went in and it was that serious, then they always had the bomb to fall back on. So if they go in and they meet stiff resistance, they still have a weapon. But if they went in and they're on their knees already, then no bombing, no massive loss of life, but you still have a nation that surrendered. Whereas bombing either scenario, it just ended the war. Either way, same amount of people died. Same result at the end. So what's right? What's the actual value? What are we valuing? Are we doing this with our heart? Are we doing this with our mind? Are we doing it with our pocketbook? Are we doing it with a lawyer? What's the direction we take this? I find with this scenario that if anyone's trying to look for one that'll allow them to sleep well at night, I don't think there one exists. And I think if you make the decision very simple, well, that's just history repeating itself. Like, let's look at why are we even here in the first place. You got Russia that was told that there's going to be a number of countries to its west that'll be left alone by the allies of the West, that there was an Iron Curtain. That's not being honored. If Ukraine does get membership of the EU, it's going to be a violation of that agreement that we made after World War II. And if we start violating agreements just to make people feel better, then they start to lose meaning. And I'm not saying we're going to do it to make it feel better, but what I'm getting at by saying that is that if you have no legal grounds in which to allow this to happen because of an agreement, you're just not honoring it. So that's what I'm saying. If you bring lawyers into this, you're gonna see a lot of people get upset. It's not going to be the outcome that everyone wants. We get so used to seeing the long arm of the law get its way, and then when we watch movies, the greater good wins. Karma gets its day, and we want that for this. And I don't fault that. I don't fault that. But doesn't mean Russia's innocent. They're breaking their word after the fall of the USSR and the independence that Ukraine fought for in the 90s. They got it. They had to give up all their nuclear bombs to do it. But the agreement was they'd never be invaded and occupied. So they're breaking their word. But then again, with law, you're getting a loophole. Who'd you make that with? With us or the USSR? That's just Russia is just breaking their word. So everyone's breaking their word. Well, then you can say, well, we're breaking our word because we're going to do a good thing, because it's someone that's doing it on their own will. Okay. And Putin's only doing it because he's a dictator. He's just taking advantage. Well, let's paint a new scenario here. Canada. What if instead of Quebec being French, it's all Russian, but the rest of Canada is not Russian? And the United States wants to sign them over, the rest of Canada. But that'll also include Quebec. But Quebec has strong ties with Russia, and Russia signed agreements and their protection alliance, and this is going to violate a whole bunch of things. So Russia threatens, if you sign over Canada with Quebec, I'm coming in. That's a sign of aggression. What's your answers though with that? If they have legal rights to have a connection with Quebec, but the rest of Canada is connected as a singular entity, and why I painted in that picture is that there's parts of the country that has a stronger Russian density in the population. That's what makes this so confusing. That's why there is no general correct course of action. That's why I said you might have to pick the worst case scenario that you can live with, and then that ends up being your decision. I don't think we get to settle on this one with our heart, with confidence. I think this one needs to be understood on a conscious level. And we have to make a decision that is unsavory, but it's the best of the bunch. So that's why I think not escalating this conflict, but supplying it in a way that the conflict that's being fought at this moment could be constant, with not a defense but a offense. That sounds like escalation, but escalation to me is if Ukraine starts getting like air support from France with fighter jets and helicopters and tanks from Germany, and other support from America and Canada and England. That's escalation. But if you did like Foreign Legion, which is a private independent outfit with volunteers from all over the world, that's different, I think. Because there would be a technicality that every country they can put their hands up and go, I'm not doing it. Versus actual military involvement from first world nations against Russia. Because I'll tell you right now, if Russia feels very alone, I think it would make sense that he would escalate. Like, I got beat up by just one person. That sucks. Oh, you got a group of people coming at you, and they all want to fight. They all want to beat you up. Well, when you're looking at them moving in on you, your options are completely limited. You can't test yourself against that. You got to be way more lethal than the rest of them. They're thinking about kicking and punching you and giving you a black eye and slapping you around. You gotta chop them in the throat, kick them in the privates, and bounce their head off the cement wall. Because you don't have time to fight 3 or 4 people at once. You're not gonna win doing that either, but if you can get enough done at the beginning, it'll make the rest really consider whether they want to. You can't pull your punches in a group. When you're the receiving end of a group fight, because you don't have any allies, you got to get ruthless. That's just survival instinct. So if we push Russia into survival instinct, well, they've got some hardware that they will use. You take 2 people that get in a fight, and one has a gun in a holster on their belt, but they've been fighting, fist fighting. That person that owns the gun starts to lose, like really lose, it starts to get bad for them. They're starting pain. They want it to stop. They will pull that gun, even though they're not winning that fist fight. And if it was a greed fist fight, now you're depending on their honor. There's not a lot of people out there that would take a beating and then keep their word not to draw their gun. So this is like picking up a scorpion or trying to pick up a porcupine. Is that you either got to commit to the fact that you're going to get poked more than once and just deal with it later, or you take the time, coax it. There is no answer. It's just, what bad outcome can you live with? Yeah. Well, I wish I had something better for you. Ended on a nicer note. But these are my thoughts on it. Our heart goes out to all the people that are suffering, all the people that are in pain, all the people that are injured, all the people that don't know what tomorrow is going to be. Our heart goes out to all of them. And I guess what we can do from here is donate what we can. Vote with a clear conscience. And my heart goes out to all you listeners that do listen to me. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for coming back all these times. Really appreciate that. But I probably have a lot of missing holes in what I previously just said. That's why these are just rambling thoughts. But I am not an expert on anything. These are just the things that I'm considering. And thank you for listening to them. Until next time, have a good day.